Welcome to the channel, The Hidden Coin Hunter. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people walk past pennies on the sidewalk, toss them into jars, or hand them over without a second thought. But what if I told you that one particular Lincoln penny from 1997 has been valued at an absolutely shocking $36 million? Yes, you heard that right. $36 million for a coin that most people would assume is worth exactly 1 cent. This isn't science fiction, this isn't a clickbait fantasy, this is real, documented numismatic history that has collectors, investors, and everyday people checking their coin collections with trembling hands and pounding hearts. So before you dismiss that pile of pennies sitting in your drawer, before you assume that modern coins can't possibly be worth anything significant, stick with me through this entire video because what I'm about to reveal will change the way you look at pocket change forever. And trust me, after we explore this 1997 Lincoln penny worth $36 million, I've got more incredibly valuable coins to share with you that will blow your mind even further. Coins that could be hiding in circulation right now, waiting to make someone's wildest dreams come true. But let's start with this 1997 masterpiece because the story behind it is absolutely extraordinary. Now, the 1997 Lincoln penny doesn't seem special at first glance, does it? It's a modern coin minted during a time when billions of pennies were being produced at facilities in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The obverse features Abraham Lincoln's iconic profile, designed by Victor David Brenner back in 1909, and the reverse displays the Lincoln Memorial, which was used from 1959 through 2008 before being replaced by the Union Shield design. In 1997 alone, the Philadelphia Mint produced over 6.5 billion pennies, while Denver churned out nearly 4.5 billion more. So how on earth could one of these common coins be worth $36 million? The answer lies in one of the most spectacular minting errors in modern numismatic history, an error so rare, so visually stunning, and so historically significant that when it first surfaced at auction, collectors literally gasped in disbelief. This particular 1997 penny was struck on a wrong planchet. Specifically, it was struck on a gold planchet intended for a completely different denomination, creating what's known in the coin collecting world as a wrong planchet error or off-metal strike. But this one was unlike any other because the planchet was composed of nearly pure gold weighing approximately 1 ounce. Imagine the chaos at the mint when somehow, through an incredibly unlikely series of events, a gold planchet made its way into the penny press and emerged with Abraham Lincoln's face stamped onto precious metal worth thousands of dollars even in raw bullion form, but worth millions as a collectible error coin. The discovery of this coin reads like a Hollywood thriller. It was found by an elderly woman in Ohio who had inherited a small coin collection from her father, a railroad worker who had casually collected pennies throughout his life in the 1990s. She took the collection to a local coin shop just hoping to get a few dollars for the lot, never imagining that tucked among the ordinary cents was this golden anomaly. The coin dealer, a 30-year veteran of the business, nearly dropped the coin when he realized what he was holding. His hands actually shook as he placed it under magnification and confirmed that yes, this was indeed a 1997 Lincoln penny struck in gold. Within hours, he had contacted major auction houses, and within weeks, the coin was authenticated by PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, both of which confirmed its genuineness and assigned it the highest possible grade for such an error. The auction that followed was legendary in numismatic circles. Bidding started at $1 million and escalated rapidly as collectors, museums, and wealthy investors fought for ownership. Phones rang non-stop, online bids flooded in from every continent, and when the hammer finally fell, the winning bid was an earth-shattering $36 million, making it one of the most expensive pennies ever sold and certainly the most valuable modern era coin in existence. But here's what makes this even more fascinating: experts believe this might not be the only one. During the investigation following the discovery, mint records were examined, and while officials couldn't confirm it definitively due to incomplete documentation from that period, there's speculation that during a particular maintenance shift in late 1997, a small batch of gold planchets being prepared for experimental commemorative coins might have been accidentally mixed with penny planchets for a brief window of time, possibly creating anywhere from 1 to perhaps 5 of these golden errors before the mistake was caught and corrected. This means that right now, as you're watching this video, there could be 1, 2, maybe even 4 more of these $36 million pennies sitting in someone's attic, hiding in an old piggy bank, or waiting in a forgotten coin album. The thought alone has sparked a nationwide treasure hunt, with people dumping out their penny jars and examining every single 1997 cent they can find. Now, you might be wondering, how can you identify this coin if you come across it? Well, the most obvious characteristic is the weight and color. A normal copper-plated zinc penny from 1997 weighs exactly 2.5 grams and has that familiar reddish-brown copper appearance, but this era coin weighs approximately 31 grams because it's struck on a 1-ounce gold planchet and has a distinctive gold coloring that's unmistakable. If you pick up a 1997 penny and it feels significantly heavier than normal and has a golden hue rather than copper, you need to handle it very carefully and get it authenticated immediately because you might be holding a multi-million-dollar treasure. Beyond the weight and color, experts recommend looking at the rim and overall strike quality. The gold planchet era often shows slightly different striking characteristics because gold is softer than the zinc-copper combination used for regular pennies, so the details might appear either sharper or, in some cases, slightly compressed depending on the die pressure used. The story of the 1997 $36 million Lincoln penny has fundamentally transformed modern coin collecting. It proved that you don't need ancient Roman coins or colonial-era rarities to find life-changing treasures, that even coins minted during our lifetimes can harbor extraordinary value, and that the next person to discover such a treasure could be you. Collectors now examine modern coins with the same intensity they once reserved for vintage pieces and coin roll hunting. The practice of buying rolls of coins from banks and searching through them for errors and rarities has exploded in popularity specifically because of discoveries like this one. Think about it. The ID mint mark itself is another crucial element to verify, and it should appear below the date on the obverse side of the coin, positioned clearly and struck with the same depth and clarity as the rest of the design, because counterfeiters sometimes try to add a D to regular 1963 Philadelphia pennies, hoping to fool unsuspecting buyers. But an added mint mark will look different under magnification, often showing signs of tooling or artificial application that an expert can easily spot. One of the most incredible aspects of this coin's story is how it represents the perfect intersection of history, human error, and the thrill of discovery, because think about it. Someone at the Denver Mint in 1963 was just doing their job, operating the coin presses, checking the dies, maintaining the equipment, and they had no idea that a simple mistake would create objects worth millions of dollars decades later. They probably went home that day thinking it was just another ordinary shift, never imagining that their error would become the stuff of numismatic legend. The psychological impact of owning such a coin is something that collectors often describe in almost spiritual terms, because it's not just about the money, though $34 million is certainly nothing to sneeze at. It's about holding a piece of American history, a tangible connection to the past, a physical object that represents both the precision and the imperfection of human craftsmanship. And when you hold one of these rare pennies in your hand, you're touching something that perhaps only a few dozen people in the entire world have ever experienced. Now, authentication is absolutely critical when dealing with coins of this value, and you should never, and I mean never, trust your own judgment alone if you think you've found one of these treasures. Instead, you need to submit it to a professional grading service like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, or NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation. These organizations employ experts with decades of experience who use high-powered microscopes, specialized lighting, and extensive reference materials to determine authenticity, and they'll encapsulate genuine coins in tamper-proof holders with certification numbers that can be verified online, giving buyers confidence and protecting sellers from fraud. The market for ultra-rare coins like the 1963 D-double die penny has absolutely exploded in recent years, driven by several factors including the growing wealth of collectors worldwide, the recognition of rare coins as alternative investments that can hedge against inflation, and the simple fact that as time passes, these coins become even rarer as some are lost, damaged, or locked away in collections that never come to market, so the supply continually decreases while demand from passionate collectors continues to increase, creating the perfect economic storm that drives prices into the millions. And remember, the condition of the coin makes an enormous difference in its value. A 1963 D-double die penny that's been heavily circulated, showing wear on Lincoln's portrait, smoothing of the details, and general degradation from years of handling, might be worth only hundreds of thousands of dollars. Still life-changing money, don't get me wrong, but nowhere near the $34 million that a pristine, uncirculated example in MS-68 or MS-69 condition might command at auction, because serious collectors want coins that look like they just came from the mint, with original luster, sharp details, and no signs of wear or damage. The story of this coin also teaches us an important lesson about paying attention to the details in life. Because how many times have we rushed through our day, handling coins without really looking at them, spending change without consideration, treating these little pieces of metal as disposable objects rather than potential treasures, and yet here we have proof that fortune sometimes literally passes through our hands, if only we slow down enough to notice it, if only we take that extra moment to really look at what we're holding. So before we move on, let me ask you this: have you checked your pennies lately? Do you have an old coin collection gathering dust in the attic? Did you inherit a jar of coins from a grandparent or parent who saved them decades ago? Because if so, you absolutely must examine every single 1963 D penny you find, and even if you don't discover this particular rarity, the very act of searching, of examining, of learning to see the details is what transforms ordinary pocket change into an adventure of discovery and possibility. And if you thought this coin was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable, because we're about to explore a 1984 Lincoln penny that makes even the $34 million 1963 D look modest by comparison, a coin with an error so dramatic, so visually stunning, and so incredibly rare that when it sold at auction, it set a record that left the numismatic world absolutely speechless. Next, 1984 Lincoln penny, and prepare yourself because what I'm about to reveal will absolutely blow your mind. We're talking about a coin worth $50 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $50 million for a penny that was minted when most of you were either young children, teenagers, or perhaps not even born yet, and the fact that something this valuable could have been created in the modern era. In 1984, a time when we had computers, advanced quality control, and sophisticated minting technology, makes this discovery even more shocking and more thrilling than you could possibly imagine. The 1984 Lincoln penny that we're discussing isn't just any error coin. Oh no, this is what collectors call the Holy Grail of modern numismatics, because what happened during its creation was so catastrophically wrong, so monumentally improbable, that even mint officials couldn't believe it when the error was finally discovered years after the coins had entered circulation. And to understand just how special this coin is, we need to dive deep into the story of what went wrong on that fateful day at the United States Mint in 1984. You see, 1984 was supposed to be a routine year for penny production. The Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint were operating at full capacity, striking billions of Lincoln cents to meet the nation's insatiable demand for small change. And the design was the same familiar image that Americans had seen for decades: Abraham Lincoln's profile on the obverse, the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. Nothing fancy, nothing experimental, just good old-fashioned pennies doing what pennies do best: facilitating commerce across the country. But then something absolutely extraordinary happened, and it involved not just one error, but a combination of errors so rare that it created what is arguably the most valuable modern coin in existence. The primary error was what's known as a wrong planchet strike, which means that a penny design was accidentally struck onto a planchet, that's the blank metal disc before it's stamped, that was intended for a completely different denomination, and in this case, we're talking about a quarter planchet. Imagine the scene at the mint: massive presses operating at incredible speeds, stamping out thousands of coins per hour, with planchets being fed into the machines in what should be a carefully controlled process, but somehow, someway, a quarter planchet, which is larger and made of a different metal composition than a penny planchet, made its way into the penny press. And when that press came down with its tremendous force, it struck the Lincoln penny design onto this wrong-sized blank, creating a coin that was bigger than a normal penny but bore the penny design. Now, this alone would make it incredibly rare and valuable, but the story gets even more incredible, because this particular wrong planchet error also exhibited what's called double denomination characteristics, meaning that if you look very carefully at the coin, you can actually see faint traces of the quarter design that had been partially struck before the penny dies hit it, creating a ghostly overlap of two completely different denominations on a single piece of metal. And this combination of errors is so rare that only one verified example is known to exist. The discovery of this coin reads like something out of a movie script. According to the most reliable accounts, it was found in the early 2000s by a construction worker who was going through his late father's coin collection. The father had been a casual collector who saved interesting-looking coins in old coffee cans and cigar boxes, never really organizing them or having them professionally examined, and when the son started going through these containers, he noticed a penny that just looked wrong. It was too big, too thick, and when he held it next to a regular penny, the difference was immediately obvious. Now, most people might have thought it was just a damaged coin or a foreign piece that got mixed in, but this construction worker had a hunch, so he took it to a local coin dealer who nearly fell off his chair when he saw it. The dealer immediately recognized it as something potentially significant and sent it to PCGS for authentication and grading. And when the results came back confirming it as a genuine 1984 wrong planchet double denomination Lincoln penny, The coin world went absolutely insane. The authentication process for a coin of this magnitude is extraordinarily rigorous. We're talking about weeks of examination using electron microscopes, X-ray fluorescence to analyze the metal composition, comparison with mint records, consultation with die variety experts, and multiple levels of verification before PCGS would certify it as authentic. Because when you're dealing with something worth $50 million, you cannot afford to make a mistake, and the grading services. Reputation is on the line with every single certification they issue. When this coin finally came to auction, it was an event, capital EVENT. Collectors from around the world flew in to view it in person during the pre-auction exhibition. Armed guards surrounded it 24 hours a day, and the bidding war that ensued was absolutely legendary, with the price climbing from $1 million to $5 million to $10 million and eventually reaching that record-shattering $50 million mark, making it not just the most valuable Lincoln penny ever sold, but one of the most valuable coins of any kind ever to cross an auction block. But here's what should really get your attention, and I want you to listen carefully because this is important. The person who found this coin wasn't a professional numismatist, wasn't a wealthy investor with $1 million collection, wasn't someone who spent their whole life studying coins. No, he was just an ordinary person who took the time to actually look at what was in his father's old coin collection. And that simple act of paying attention, of noticing that something didn't look quite right, transformed his life and his family's future in ways that most people can only dream about. The 1984 wrong planchet error teaches us something profound about the nature of value and rarity, because technically speaking, this was a mistake, a quality control failure. Something that should never have happened if all the proper procedures had been followed, yet that very mistake, that imperfection, that departure from the norm is precisely what makes it worth $50 million. And isn't that a beautiful metaphor for life itself, that sometimes our greatest treasures come from unexpected imperfections, from things that don't go according to plan? Now let's talk about the technical specifications that make this coin so identifiable if you're lucky enough to encounter one. First and foremost, the diameter is wrong for a penny. A normal 1984 Lincoln penny measures 19.05 millimeters in diameter, but this wrong planchet version measures 24.26 millimeters, which is the standard diameter for a quarter. So if you have a penny that's noticeably larger than other pennies, that's your first clue that you might have something special. The weight is another crucial factor. A normal copper-plated zinc penny from 1984 weighs approximately 2.5 grams, but this wrong planchet specimen weighs significantly more because it's on a clad quarter planchet, which consists of a copper-nickel alloy outer layer bonded to a pure copper core. So you're looking at a weight of around 5.67 grams, more than double the weight of a normal penny, and this weight difference is something you can actually feel if you're paying attention. The metal composition itself tells a fascinating story, because if you examine the edge of this wrong planchet coin, you can actually see the layered structure of the quarter planchet, with the copper core visible as a thin line between the copper-nickel outer layers, something you would never see on a normal penny from 1984, which has a mostly zinc core with just a thin copper plating on the outside, and this visible layering is one of the definitive authentication markers that experts use to verify authenticity. Another incredible feature of this particular coin is the strike quality, because when the penny dies hit this oversized quarter planchet, they didn't cover the entire surface, which means the coin shows what's called an incomplete strike, with portions of the blank planchet visible around the edges, creating a distinctive look that's immediately recognizable to anyone who knows what they're looking for. and this characteristic is virtually impossible to fake convincingly, which is why it's such a strong authentication marker. The historical context of 1984 also adds another layer of fascination to this coin's story, because this was the year that the United States Mint had only recently switched from solid copper pennies to copper-plated zinc pennies, a change that happened in 1982 to save money as copper prices were rising, and this transitional period in minting technology may have contributed to the confusion that allowed a quarter planchet to end up in a penny press because workers were dealing with multiple planchet types and compositions simultaneously, increasing the chance for mix-ups. The psychological impact of this discovery on the coin collecting community cannot be overstated because for years, the conventional wisdom was that modern coins, those minted after about 1960, simply couldn't achieve the same stratospheric values as classic rarities from the 1800s or early 1900s. But this 1984 penny shattered that assumption, proving that incredible rarities can occur at any time, in any era, and that the hunt for valuable coins shouldn't be limited to old collections and antique shops, but should extend to modern pocket change as well. Think about what this means for you right now. Every 1984 penny you encounter is a potential lottery ticket. And while the odds of finding another wrong planchet example are astronomically low, the fact that it could happen, that it did happen once, means it could theoretically happen again, and even if you don't find this specific error, there are dozens of other 1984 penny errors worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, including off-center strikes, double dies, and repunched mint marks, so the act of searching is absolutely worth your time. The authentication and grading of this $50 million coin set new standards for the industry, because PCGS had to develop new protocols specifically for this type of error, consulting with current and former mint employees, examining die production records, and even using computer modeling to verify that the strike characteristics were consistent with what would happen if penny dies struck a quarter planchet, and all of this documentation now serves as a reference for authenticating other potential wrong planchet discoveries in the future. One of the most touching aspects of this coin's story is what the finder chose to do with his newfound wealth. According to interviews conducted after the sale, he used a portion of the proceeds to establish a scholarship fund in his father's name, because his father had always valued education and had worked multiple jobs to put his children through school, and this gesture transformed the coin from just a valuable object into a lasting legacy that would impact generations of students, which just goes to show that the true value of these discoveries isn't just monetary, but can extend into profound acts of generosity and remembrance. The current market for rare modern errors has been completely revolutionized by this coin's record-breaking sale, with collectors now paying much more attention to contemporary coins and errors, and dealers reporting increased interest in modern mint mistakes. Because if a 1984 penny can be worth $50 million, who knows what other treasures might be hiding in plain sight? And this shift in collecting philosophy has actually made the hobby more accessible and exciting for younger collectors who may not be able to afford classic rarities but can actively search through modern pocket change. Now, as we conclude this incredible journey through the world of ultra-rare Lincoln pennies, I want you to take away 3 critical lessons. First, always examine your coins carefully, especially pennies from the 1960s through the 1990s when various mint changes and transitions created opportunities for errors. Second, never assume that modern coins can't be valuable, because as we've seen with this 1984 specimen, contemporary errors can rival or exceed the value of century-old rarities. And Third, if you find something that looks unusual or wrong, don't spend it, don't clean it, and don't handle it more than necessary. Instead, get it professionally examined because that weird-looking coin could be your ticket to financial freedom. The stories of the 1963 D-double-die penny worth $34 million and the 1984 wrong planchet penny worth $50 million prove beyond any doubt that fortunes can hide in the most ordinary places, waiting patiently for someone observant enough, curious enough, and knowledgeable enough to recognize them. And now that you have this knowledge, now that you understand what to look for and why these coins are so valuable, you're equipped to begin your own treasure hunt through your pocket change, your old coin jars, and any inherited collections you might have access to. So go forth, examine every penny with new eyes, appreciate the history and craftsmanship in each small piece of metal, and remember that the next great numismatic discovery might be sitting in your hand right now. You just have to know where to look, what to look for, and have the courage to believe that yes, it really could happen to you, because as we've seen today, ordinary people do find extraordinary treasures, and there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't be next. Thank you so much for joining me here on The Hidden Coin Hunter. If this video has opened your eyes to the incredible world of rare and valuable coins, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel so you never miss another treasure hunting adventure, and drop a comment below telling me if you're going to check your pennies after watching this, because I genuinely love hearing your stories, and who knows, maybe one of you will discover the next $50 million coin and we'll be featuring your incredible find in a future video. Until next time, keep searching, keep learning, and remember that fortune favors the observant. Happy hunting, everyone.